When I was a kid, my grandfather used to warn me never to go into the Blackwood forest after dark. He said the trees moved when the sun went down, and that if I ever heard my name whispered inside the woods, I was to run and never look back. I thought it was just one of those strange stories old people tell to keep kids from wandering too far. But 10 years later, I learned he wasn't lying. It started when a group of us decided to camp out there. It wasn't even my idea. A friend of mine, Dylan, wanted to prove the stories about the forest were just myths. He called it a night of debunking. There were 5 of us: me, Dylan, his girlfriend Kayla, her brother Mark, and a quiet girl named Renee who barely spoke the whole drive there. We parked the truck on the dirt road and hiked in as the last of the sunlight drained from the sky. The trees rose like black pillars around us, branches clawing together overhead until they strangled the stars. At first, it was almost fun. We built a fire, roasted marshmallows, and joked about the ghost trees and forest demons. But the deeper the night stretched, the more wrong it all felt. The forest wasn't just quiet, it was hollow, like the silence was pressing against us. No insects, no wind through the leaves, nothing. Around midnight, the fire started to burn low. I went to gather more wood, wandering just far enough from camp that the glow of the flames blurred behind me. That's when I heard it. My name, soft, almost musical, drifting between the trees. I froze, every nerve in my body screaming. I told myself it was Dylan messing with me, but the voice didn't sound like him. It was higher, gentler, almost familiar, like my mother calling me in for dinner when I was a kid. "Come here," it said. "I've missed you." I bolted back to camp, heart hammering, trying not to look over my shoulder. When I burst into the clearing, everyone turned to stare. Kayla frowned. "Why are you out of breath?" I told them what I'd heard. Dylan rolled his eyes. "Classic suggestion. You're just freaked out because of all those stories your grandpa told you." But Renee looked up sharply from where she sat at the edge of the firelight. Her face was pale, her lips parted, like she wanted to speak, but she didn't. We all tried to laugh it off, but the mood had shifted. Mark tossed another log onto the fire, and for a while, we just sat there, watching the sparks drift into the black canopy above us. That's when Renee finally spoke. "He's right," she whispered. "The forest calls your name when it wants you." No one laughed. Even Dylan didn't have a joke this time. The hours dragged. At some point, Kayla went into the tent. Mark followed soon after. Dylan and I stayed by the fire, trying to keep our nerves under control. Renee just sat, staring into the trees like she was listening to something only she could hear. Some time passed too. I must have dozed off. I woke to the sound of footsteps crunching in the leaves. I blinked, confused, and realized Dylan was gone. The fire was low, just embers glowing red in the dark. Renee was still sitting there, but her eyes were wide and glassy. "Where did Dylan go?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just raised one trembling hand and pointed toward the trees. I stood, calling his name. No answer. The forest swallowed my voice whole. Against every instinct, I grabbed the flashlight and walked a few feet beyond the edge of the clearing. That's when I saw him. He was standing between 2 trees, just barely visible in the beam of my light. His back was to me, stiff, his head tilted as though he was listening. "Dylan!" I shouted. Slowly he turned, but it wasn't Dylan. The thing wearing his skin had his face, but not his eyes. His eyes were wrong, solid black, glinting like oil. His mouth hung open too wide, stretching into a smile that pulled his cheeks into unnatural shapes. And when he spoke, it wasn't his voice. It was my grandfather's. "Come here," it crooned. "You're almost home." I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the roots, my flashlight shaking in my hand. Behind me, Renee screamed. I spun around and saw shadows moving at the edge of the firelight. Dozens of them. They slipped between the trees, tall and thin, their limbs bending like branches in the wind. They whispered as they came closer, hundreds of voices overlapping, some high, some low, all calling our names. Kayla and Mark burst out of the tent, terrified. "What the hell is going on?" Mark yelled. But before I could answer, one of the shadows reached the edge of the clearing, its arms stretched out, impossibly long, and hooked around him. He didn't even get a chance to scream before it pulled him into the dark. Kayla lunged after him, but I grabbed her, dragging her back. "No, you'll never find him." My voice cracked with panic. The shadows closed in, circling us. Renee's face was wet with tears. "I told you," she whispered. "The forest takes who it wants." Then, without another word, she stood and walked straight into the dark. Her figure disappeared, swallowed by the whispering, and then silence again. The fire sputtered out. Kayla clutched my arm, shaking uncontrollably. "We have to get out," she sobbed. I nodded, but I didn't know which way was safe. Every direction looked the same. Just endless trees and endless dark. The whispers started again, softer now, weaving around us. My flashlight flickered, and in that brief moment of darkness, I swear the trees had shifted. The path we'd used to come here was gone. We ran anyway, crashing through the undergrowth, tearing through branches, tripping over roots. The voices followed, laughing, calling our names in every tone imaginable. At one point, I thought I felt fingers brush the back of my neck. I don't know how long we ran. Hours, maybe. When the flashlight finally died, we just kept moving, clinging to each other, the forest pressing in on all sides. By dawn, we stumbled out onto the dirt road where we'd left the truck. My legs gave out and I collapsed to my knees, gasping. Kayla was beside me, sobbing hysterically. The truck was still there. The keys were still in the ignition. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, I froze. In the back seat, pressed against the glass, was Mark's face, pale, wide-eyed, whispering my name. I floored it. We never found Renee. Dylan was gone too. Kayla doesn't talk to me anymore. She won't talk about that night at all. Sometimes I wonder if she even remembers it right, or if the forest took part of her with it. But me, I can't forget, because every night, just past midnight, no matter where I am, I hear it. My name whispered from the tree line. And every morning, I wake up to find dirt on the floor by my bed. So if anyone ever tells you the forest is peaceful, that it's a place to clear your head or spend a night under the stars, don't believe them. The forest doesn't just watch, it waits. And once it knows your name, it never stops calling. And if you want more stories like this one, you already know what to do. Subscribe before the forest learns your name too.
When I was 19, I rented a room in an old boarding house while going to community college. The place was cheap, the kind of house where the walls were too thin and you could hear other tenants coughing through the night. My room was small, maybe 10 by 12, with a single bed, a dresser, and a window that faced the street. At first, everything was fine. The other tenants kept to themselves, and the landlady, an older woman named Mrs. Fisher, was friendly enough. But after a couple of weeks, I started noticing things that didn't sit right with me. The first time it happened, I had just come home from a late shift at the diner where I worked. It was close to midnight. I unlocked my door, dropped my backpack, and noticed my desk chair wasn't where I left it. It had been moved a few feet, turned so it faced the window. I froze. I told myself maybe I had done it absent-mindedly, but deep down, I knew I hadn't. A few days later, I woke up in the middle of the night. My room was dark, except for the orange glow of a streetlight outside. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then I realized I was hearing breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing, but it wasn't mine. I sat up in bed, straining to listen, and the sound stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I noticed something on the inside of my door. At eye level, there was a small, fresh scratch, like someone had dug at the wood with a key or knife. I mentioned it to Mrs. Fisher, but she waved me off, saying the house was old and creaky and that maybe the scratch had always been there. Things escalated a week later. I came home one evening and found a Polaroid photo tucked under my pillow. It was a picture of me, sitting at my desk, reading a textbook. My stomach dropped. The angle of the photo meant it had been taken from inside my room. I confronted Mrs. Fisher immediately. She looked genuinely shocked and swore up and down that she hadn't been in my room. She even accused some of the other tenants of playing a prank. But when I asked if the locks had ever been changed, she avoided the question. That night, I didn't sleep in my room. I went to stay at a friend's apartment. The next day, I returned with my dad to grab my stuff. When we opened the door, something was waiting on my bed. Another Polaroid. This one was closer, blurry, but it showed me lying in bed, asleep. I moved out that day and never went back. Sometimes I wonder how long it had been going on, how many nights I had been watched without knowing. And worst of all, who in that house still has those photos?